From Anshe Sfar Beth El Emeth Congregation, it's time to take 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of seeing the celestial on Succoth. If we think about Succoth, we want to know what sort of encounter is this with God. This discussion is sponsored by Erika Sigel in memory of her loved ones whose yurtzites are held around this time of year, many of whom perished in the Holocaust. If we look at the reading for Chol Hamoed Succoth, we don't have a Chol Hamoed Succoth this year, but many years we read the Re'eh Mary Lai. We read about Moshe's request to see the face of God. As we know, God refused. God says, you can't see my face. No one can see my face and live. And somehow he saw a glimpse of God, like if you might see someone from behind and you say, oh, I think that's Shlomi. So too, we have Moshe was able to have a glimpse of God where he said, I think I understand what God is all about. Mercy and kindness is sort of what his signature is all about. Okay, so the Parsha says you can't see God. The end of the Parsha Kitisa, and also at the end of Mishpatim, it says, that 3 times a year, all your family could go see a God at a church, a place will be chosen. Person goes on Aliyah L'Regel, you go for Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, you go to the Beit HaMikdash to go to Jerusalem, and guess what? You see the face of God. So what's going on? I thought you can't see the face of God. So obviously it's all metaphors. Don't mean literally can see the face of God. But somehow, what a plain person is able to achieve on Shalosh Regalim, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, pilgrimage festivals, Moshe Rabbeinu himself could not achieve. It's an audacious suggestion. It's possible to argue with it, but it is a possibility. So too, on Yom Kippur, only the high priest can enter the Holy of Holies, and he can only do it on Yom Kippur, and he can only do it if he's a high priest, and he can only do it if he brings certain sacrifices. But it's been suggested by the Sfat Emet and the Succoth and other Hasidic rabbis that somehow on Sukkot, when we go into Sukkah, we are in the Holy of Holies. That every Jew somehow goes into the Holy of Holies. So Sukkot, somehow we're able to achieve that which we couldn't even achieve on Yom Kippur. It's been suggested actually, the Sukkah is not so much your home Sukkah. You imagine, you're back in Jaffa, back in Tzipori for the holiday, and that's where your Sukkah is, as opposed to Holy of Holies for Yom Kippur. Well, it may not be completely true. Don't forget, these Sukkot were mostly built by whom? By the Olei Regel, by those who would come to Jerusalem to observe the pilgrimage festivals. So actually, the Sukkot are not detached from the sanctuary. The Sukkot are actually auxiliaries to the sanctuary. You would go to the sanctuary, go to Jerusalem to see God, and then you would build a Sukkah in Jerusalem. So, but then this flies in the face of the famous halachic notion that Holchei Drachim Turim in HaSukkah, that those who are on a trip are exempt from the Sukkah. Probably would not be true of the Olei Regalim. It's an interesting question. But this idea that somehow in the Sukkah, it's the ultimate existence, is somehow challenged by another notion of a Sukkah as Galut. As a Sukkah representing the Jews in the desert, where they were Lechtecha Char Bamidbar, where the Jews were wandering in the desert for 40 years. And God was impressed that we were able to and willing to follow God into the desert. So in that case, Sukkah represents the desert. It doesn't represent Holy of Holies. It represents exile. As a matter of fact, Midrash says, after Sukkot, I wonder if maybe the Jews, God forbid, deserve to be going to exile. So we go in the Sukkah, so we shouldn't get real exile. We'll just go in the Sukkah. Again, seems to imply that Sukkah is exile. So which one is it? Is it exile, or is it Holy of Holies? Is it seeing God's face directly? Or is it being sent into exile where you can't see God? You're so far away, God is hidden. And the answer perhaps is told by the story in Gemara and Sukkah. Gemara and Sukkah says in the end of days, the righteous come and they'll look at the the evil inclination will be slain, and the evil inclination will look at it and they'll say, look at that. Evil inclination is like a mountain. How did we overcome the mountain of the evil inclination in this life? I don't get it. And the wicked will look at the evil inclination, and it will appear to them as a hair. And they'll say, how could we not conquer this hair in our lifetime? It's so easy that you can blow it away. What is the Gemara in Succoth saying? We're saying that after Yom Kippur, as in the end of days when this story will take place, after Yom Kippur, we also have a similar experience. The righteous walk into Sukkah, and there they find the Holy of Holies. There they have an encounter with God. There's one of the Mefarshim, one of the Rishonim says that you should look at your lulav not from the back, the spine, but from the front. The other one says, no, you should look from the front because lo ra'u fnei Erika. I'm sorry, that fanai lo ra'u, you can't see the face of God, so don't look at the face of lulav, look at the back of the lulav. So apparently, lulav also represents an encounter with God. So if you're righteous, you look at your lulav and you're having an encounter with God. You go in your sukkah, you're in the Holy of Holies, like the high priest. You're face to face with God. However, if you finish Yom Kippur and somehow you didn't make it, then you walk into sukkah and you say, hey, I'm in galut. This tells us something about life in general. We can look at our lives and we can say, where's God? Where's God's hand? I have so many troubles, so many problems. Or we can look at life and we can say, wow, I see the face of God in everything that's going on in the world. It depends on our perspective. So the sukkah could be a symbol of exile, if that's where we belong after Yom Kippur. Or it could be a symbol of the Holy of Holies, if that's where we've gotten through Yom Kippur. It depends on us. It depends who we are. It depends the journey we've been on over this Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur period. If we're ready to have an encounter with God, or if we feel like we don't deserve it, and we deserve to be cast into exile. Let's hope that this Succoth will feel like we achieved something on Yom Kippur, that we're ready to be new people. And as such, as Baalei Tshuva, we're able to go into the Sukkah and have a supernal experience, have a celestial experience in the Sukkah. You say maybe you should see the stars. Maybe in the Sukkah we'll have a bit of inspiration. You say the wife of Jonah used to come on Aliyah Regel. Jonah achieved his spiritual heights at the Simcha Peresh Oivah on Sukkot. It's a time when you can achieve great spiritual heights. But if somehow we're not ready, maybe God can consider it as if we went into exile, and that should atone for our sins. And after that, we should be worthy of entering into the sanctuary after that. Thank you for joining us here at Jesfar Beth Elmeth Congregation for our discussion of Sukkot. Join us each week for a discussion of the holidays and Parsha. And thanks to Jason Lefkowitz, our producer. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit asb.org.